Okay, so this is from the Science Professor's Ghost. Yes, thank you. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
And I'm not going to do just like a straight reading of the first chapter. I'm going to give you some scary stuff. Okay, so the first chapter is called Do Dead People Leave Voicemails? I was sitting in my car outside the old greenhouse at Throckmorton College, where I work, listening to a voicemail from someone who had been dead for a week. There was no mistaking that it was Professor Nigel Pritchett's voice, even though the speech was a little slurred and the voice was scratchy, like someone with a cold. But Professor Pritchett definitely had worse than a cold. Communicating with dead people is not a big deal to me. Working with ghosts is what I do for a living. But it's usually me trying to contact them, not the other way around. I studied the crowd of protesters lurking in the cordoned-off area and steeled myself for what had become a daily ordeal. The shouting started as soon as I opened my car door. A couple of the protesters who had been lounging on the steps sprang to life when they saw me. I have a hard time keeping a low profile these days, and they recognized my aging Subaru station wagon as soon as I drove up. I wondered yet again why these people didn't have anything better to do, such as going to work. I'm Margot Monroe, and I hunt ghosts for a living. My team and I work out of a makeshift lab on the campus of the local college. The quaint old edifice, complete with a Victorian-era glass and ironwork greenhouse dome, sports a stone lintel engraved with Horticulture Pavilion 1857 over the door. The greenhouse is tucked away in a quiet corner of the campus, or at least it used to be a quiet corner. We had a high-profile investigation a few months ago, and our building has been besieged by every crackpot in the county ever since. When, with the help of a murdered girl named Louisa, we discovered a lost musical masterpiece, we suddenly became the darlings of the international music scene and international local celebrities. We soon discovered, however, that fame has its downside, even in a little town like Throckmorton. A bearded young man with a homemade sign rushed to the barricade. "Repent the work of the devil," he yelled as I passed. His sign featured a crude drawing of a ghost, underneath which was scribbled, "Margot Monroe, we demand that you stop this unholy activity." Honestly, was I supposed to take these people seriously when they couldn't even spell my name correctly? A rotund, middle-aged woman with frizzy hair ran toward me, waving a fist menacingly. She was wearing 2 short shorts and a baggy, stained t-shirt that said, "Jesus is my homeboy." I wondered if the barricades would hold if she decided to throw her considerable weight against them. An off-duty policeman leaned against his car, examining his nails intently and smirking. I went inside the greenhouse and the shouts faded as the doors closed behind me. I passed rows of shelves lined with plants, then turned down a nondescript linoleum-tiled hall. People were milling around aimlessly, whispering, "Hey, there goes Margot, and look, it's her." I headed down the hall toward a janitor's closet. Amazingly, no one tried to follow me. The closet is empty except for some rickety old shelves and a rusty utility sink. A naked bulb dangles from the ceiling. On the wall beside the old sink is another door with an electronic panel that always strikes me as being oddly out of place. I touched my fingertips to it, and the panel glowed a phosphorescent green for a second or two. A green LED blinked, and the door to the lab popped open with a click. I stepped inside and glanced, out of habit, at the security monitor beside the door. The hall outside was still eerily empty. Ernie, longtime friend and colleague, was perched on a tall stool and surrounded by bits of dismantled computers and miscellaneous electronics. Standing next to him was a chubby boy, about 10 years old, with thick round glasses and a cherubic, freckled face. His eyes widened when he walked in. He stared at me like I was his favorite rock star. "What have we here?" I asked, hanging up my jacket. "Margot Monroe, allow me to present Chester." "Chester, this is Margot," said Ernie. "Nice to meet you, Chester. I'm guessing you're not here on a social call." "No," he replied earnestly. "I came to ask if you would investigate my school. It's haunted." Ernie was doing his best not to smile. "And what school might that be?" I asked. Chester's round face broke into an angelic smile. "Rondecue Mills," he said proudly. He pushed his glasses up on his nose with a pudgy hand and beamed up at me. He reminded me of a cartoon character. "Ah, yes. Rondecue Mills, magnet school for the gifted and talented. I guess I shouldn't be surprised." He looked every inch the budding mad scientist. "Well, have a seat over there, Chester, and tell us what's been happening." It was a good thing that Ernie recorded the conversation as Chester described the happenings at his school, because I was having a little trouble staying focused. My mind kept drifting back to the creepy phone call, and I was desperate to tell Ernie about it. "So anyway, Mrs. Cartwright believes us now, and well, my class has a semester project." Did we really want to help with a school science project? Call me a skeptic, but I'm inclined to think chalkboard erasers going missing and books mysteriously finding their way into the supply closet has more to do with mischievous fifth graders than anything paranormal. "I don't know." Ernie interrupted. "Let's not be so quick to dismiss it, Margot." As if he'd read my thoughts, he said, "I know what you're thinking, but the school's security cameras have never picked up a thing." I considered it for a minute and conceded it would probably end up being the most interesting thing on our upcoming schedule. Oh well, why not? Chester clapped his hands in delight, his face lighting up. I checked our schedule on my iPad. Who do we need to talk to? Chester pulled a grubby business card that read Emily Golding, Principal, out of his back pocket. The school logo was embossed in dark blue in one corner. My phone number's on the back of it, said Chester. I flipped the card over. His phone number was carefully printed in a round, looping hand in pencil. Okay, Chester, we'll get to work on it right away. How'd you get here? The bus, he shrugged into a backpack. It goes right by my house. I didn't even know Throckmorton had a bus. I live in Indian Springs, which is just a couple of miles down the road, and we don't have public transportation. Someone from the team will be in touch. Shaking hands didn't seem to be quite the right thing to do, and I had to restrain myself from patting him on the head. I'm not sure we should let you go out there alone. The natives are restless today. Ernie said, I'll make sure he gets to the bus stop. Chester stared over his shoulder at me and waved goodbye as Ernie propelled him out the door. Okay, I'm going to skip ahead a little bit. Just so you know, she goes to investigate the science lab, nothing happens, and then she meets the dead science professor's very good looking and very suave and debonair replacement. And then they decide to do, and his name is Seth, so he pops up here. Then they decide to do an official investigation with all the equipment and everything. And this chapter is called The Things I Endure for My Job. Ernie yanked on the handbrake of his battered 1967 Austin Mini and tilted the rearview mirror so he could watch out the back window. What are we waiting for? I asked. Security guard. He usually finishes up here right about now. And there he goes. He checked the time on his phone, right on time. I craned my neck to peer out the back window in time to see the brake lights of a campus security car. We have about 3 hours before he makes it back around. We should be finished long before then, he added. I still think we should have cleared this with somebody. We discussed this. If they said no and we just have to sneak in anyway, but then they would know we're coming. This is better. We got out, gathered up our backpacks and cases, each of which weighed approximately 1 ton. He closed the car door softly. As we staggered toward the science lab, looking like commandos about to storm a beach, a thought struck me. What if we can't get in the building? He stuck his hand in his pocket and produced an access card. Where'd you get that? I have my sources, he said. He slid the card through the reader and the door opened with a click. Inside, the only light came from a distant street lamp, filtering in weakly through the windows. When we turned down the hall to the lab, we lost even that. It was nearly pitch black. The exit signs at either end of the hall provided the only illumination. Shouldn't we be worried about security cameras or something? I whispered. No, there aren't any. This building is so old they decided it would cost too much. We just have to be sure we're out of here by the time the security guard comes around again. We paused in front of the lab door and listened. The only sound was the hum of a generator somewhere in the bowels of the building. Well, what if it's locked? I asked. Without a word, he produced something from his pocket. What's that? Lockpick. Do you know how to use it? No, not really, he admitted. But we didn't need the lockpick. As soon as I touched the knob, the door creaked open. Super, said Ernie. We haven't even started and I'm already getting creeped out. I shone my flashlight around the room. It looked just as it had when I'd paid my previous visit. But in the darkness, the weird shapes on the table took on a sinister air. We spent an hour alternately listening quietly and imploring any entities that might be present to speak with us. Everything remained quiet on our various gadgets. No temperature fluctuations, no EMF hits, no nothing. Lest you think that ghost hunting is non-stop excitement, let me take this opportunity to enlighten you. You spend hours sitting around in a dark room asking questions and fiddling with gadgets. Most of the time, absolutely nothing happens. Typically, you have to wait until you go over your videos and voice recordings before you know if you've made contact. And even then, it's not always easy to determine if something you've captured is a genuine paranormal event. Very often, what looks convincingly like a ghost is just a trick of the light or a digital artifact. After about 45 minutes, that seemed like hours, Ernie said, I think we've about covered this room. Any idea what's in here? Probably just a closet. Ernie, what are you doing? He was on his knees in front of the closet door I'd found locked earlier, his lockpick in one hand and a flashlight in another. I heard a click and Ernie pumped a fist triumphantly in the air. It wasn't a closet, but a tiny office, with a desk and computer, a couple of chairs, and a few bookshelves. A brand new, top-of-the-line computer sat on the desk. Its box was still on the floor. One shelf held a few books and some haphazardly stacked binders. The other shelves were bare. This must be Seth's office, remarked Ernie. Nice computer. I didn't know professors got such snazzy stuff. Well, don't touch it. Why? He asked. Fingerprints. You're just being paranoid. Relax. No, Ernie, come on, let's get out of here. There's something about this I don't like. I don't want to hang around here any longer than we have to. We spent the next few minutes packing up our stuff. Maybe it was just my conscience prickling me, but I was feeling uncharacteristically nervous and couldn't wait to get out. As I was tossing some gadgets into the backpack, I heard a noise in the hall. Ernie heard it too, and we both froze. With growing unease, I realized that the noise was footsteps, and they were getting closer. "Somebody's coming," he whispered. "Grab the stuff and let's get into Pritchett's office." "Well, what if they go in there?" "Shh, we don't have time to discuss it. Get under the desk, quick." He pushed me through the door to Pritchett's office, and we wedged ourselves and our equipment under the desk with seconds to spare. We heard a clink of keys and the door opening, followed by footsteps. The intruder was wearing hard-soled shoes. We could hear every step he took as he walked around the lab. A few seconds later, a faint blue glow lit up the frosted glass pane in the office door. I heard a friendly chime from the lab. "They've turned on the computer," Ernie whispered. "Great, we're going to be in here for a while." The minutes we were crammed under the desk felt like hours. We could hear the person in the lab on the other side of the desk typing away on the clunky old computer on the desk. "What time is it?" I asked him, what I hope was the softest of whispers. "How am I supposed to know? Don't you have a phone or something? Are you crazy? The glow from the screen might give us away." After what seemed like light years, Ernie began to squirm. "Be still," I hissed. Instead of replying, he buried his face in his gadget bag and sneezed. He emerged from the bag with a horrified expression on his face. It was not the kind of sneeze you could muffle, and when he glanced into the bag, his expression changed to disgust. The typing stopped. We froze, still as statues. Neither of us dared breathe. I could hear my heartbeat, and I think I might have heard Ernie's too. Footsteps came toward us and paused outside the door. We heard the doorknob being jiggled, first gently, then harder. The glass pane rattled, but the door didn't budge. The footsteps retreated, and the sounds of typing resumed. We listened for another eternity until finally we heard another chime and the lab went dark. The intruder paused again at Pritchett's office door on the way out, trying the doorknob one more time. At long last, we heard the outer door closed, followed by the sounds of keys and a lock. I waited a few minutes, then extricated myself carefully from under the desk. What a relief. I need to go to the bathroom. Bad. Ernie crawled out from under the desk on all fours. "Why didn't you go before?" "I did. I didn't know we were going to be here for hours. It's 2 a.m. We only got here 3 hours ago." "Only? It seems like years," I said, flexing my foot, which had fallen asleep. "Let's get out of here," he said, gingerly getting to his feet. "The security guard is due back any time now." I tried to stand up, but my foot was completely numb. It began to tingle as the circulation started back. Ouch, ouch. I rubbed it, which only made it worse. "Shh, I heard something." Reluctantly, I ducked under the desk again. Somebody was at the outer door. I held my breath. Horror-struck, we heard the hall door open, and after a second, the frosted pane was brightly lit as the lights went on in the lab. Much to my relief, they went out again after a few seconds. We heard the door shut and the jingle of keys. We waited for a few seconds, straining our ears for any sounds, but the lab was silent. "Geez Louise, this place is like Grand Central Station," remarked Ernie. Carefully, I opened Pritchett's office door an inch and peeked through the crack into the lab with one eye. "It's safe. Let's go before I explode," I said. "Wait a minute," said Ernie. "Did you notice anything weird?" He was on his knees, examining the doorknob, using the light from his phone as a flashlight. "Weird? No, Ernie, what's weird about spending 2 hours in the middle of the night wedged under a desk? I do it all the time." He fixed me with a baleful stare. "Think of it as a hazard of the job." "No, I mean whoever it was out there tried hard to open the door. I thought he was going to shatter the glass, but there's no lock on it. It opened right up for us." "It's just an old door that sticks sometimes. Come on, this is an emergency. I'm not kidding. We still need to be careful. That security guard can't be far." Ernie opened the door into the hall and peered through the crack. "Coast is clear." I gathered up as much stuff as I could carry and was halfway down the hall when I realized Ernie wasn't behind me. "What are you doing now?" I hissed in my best stage whisper. "Trying to lock this door." It was certainly the first time I've ever heard of anyone trying to use a lockpick to lock a door. Look, you're just going to have to leave it unlocked. Probably no one will notice, and if they do, they'll think the security guard just forgot to lock it back. Let's go." We crept down the hall, cradling our equipment to prevent any clanks and jingles. The relief I felt as we slipped out the door was indescribable. I was urgently in need of another kind of relief. But to my extreme annoyance, Ernie was staring at his car, scratching his head. "Come on, Ernie, open the door. I need to go." "No, we'd better walk back." "What? Have you totally lost it? It's halfway across campus." "Yeah, but I don't want to take the chance on firing up the engine or turning on the headlights." I considered mugging him for the keys, but conceded that he did have a point. "Then I suggest we stop farting around," I said, zipping up my jacket. The nip in the air wasn't helping matters. We stashed the heaviest gear in the car, quietly closed the doors, and began our trek. The walk across campus, more like a jog if you must know, seemed to take eons. At least there weren't any protesters to dodge at this hour of the morning. My dash to the ladies' room may have set a new record. When I went back into the lab, feeling considerably better, Ernie was plugging a flash drive into his computer. What on earth are you doing? I just wanted to check something. It's 2:30 in the morning. We can look over the evidence later. We will, but I want to check something before I go home. Don't worry about me. You go on. We'll talk tomorrow. I was in no mood to argue. Whatever floats your boat, I said.